said, well, we can bring a dish to pass. And I said, well, my neighbor just made me a cake. We'll just take that. And it was in a little Tupperware thing. So we just grabbed the cake and we went. And so we get there, and 3 months in, he was introducing me as the love of his life. And we sit the cake down, and I take the top out. In my first AA Christmas party, I took a rum cake.
You didn't even tell me that
I have no idea. Oh my goodness. So we have laughed about that for years and years. And
Way to go, Mom.
every time I do something silly like that, he'd say, like the Christmas party. But we had such an amazing relationship, and so grateful for everything. And there was one other thing at one. Oh, and then anybody that knew David knew he had 3 huge pet peeves: the wind blowing, dogs barking, and babies crying. He despised them. We'd go to a restaurant, there'd be a crying baby, be like coming out of his skin. 5 days ago, he was at my house working at my bathroom. And my grandson, Caden, was there, and I needed him to hold him because I needed to do something. I said, David, will you hold Caden? He said, you know how I am about babies. No. And I said, please just hold him. So he held him, and Caden grabbed it and held a hold of his finger and looked him in the eyes, and a look came over him, and he said, oh my God, I get it. He saw the peace and the calmness in a baby. There's actually a picture down there of him.
And then offered me to hold him for me while I had to do
Every
something
time he
next day.
came, he's like, I'll hold Caden. So he
That's a big
really,
change.
yeah, so he was able to experience that before he left us, the joy and innocence of a baby. So anyways, thank you all again for coming. He'd be so honored that everybody's here. He was a great guy, and
Every time you hear some thunder, just know he's banging nails.
he's fixing something, probably correcting Jesus' work.
Banging nails.
So anyway, I'm going to step away. I think there's a couple people that have just a couple things to say. We will ask that everybody keep it to just a couple minutes because we don't want it to go too long. But thank you all so much. I'm so thankful and grateful for you all being here. And also, again, please feel free to take Release for Peace. If anyone doesn't know what they are, there's a piece of paper, and it says when you've done all that you can do, put it in God's hands, and you write your problem on that piece of paper. My problem I've been writing on there is living with the loss. And when you put it in his hands, about 20 minutes later, the problem is lifted from the paper. You want to grab Caden? The problem is lifted as a metaphor that if there's nothing else you can do, you can let go. So thank you all again so much. I'm so grateful to see all of you here. Thank you. Dale?
Thank you, Sheila. Scott, you want to say anything?
No, I'm good.
All right, who would like to go first? Does anybody want to come up and say something about David?
I will.
Come in. Now's your chance.
Hey, everybody. David, I'm Pam. I'm Dale's wife, or he's my husband, whichever one. By the grace of God. And David came and lived with us for a few weeks. I have this story because when somebody stays at my house, I want to cook a big meal. Country-style steak, homemade potatoes, deviled eggs, green bean casserole, a roll. And I said, okay, everybody, let's eat. David looked at me and said, Pam, can I have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich? I said, really, David? I said, I've got all this food. He said, I understand you made it, but that's what I want tonight, and thank God for this program. I could inventory his and say, it's okay. And I said, but I'm not going to fix it for you. You can fix your own. And that's my little story.
Thank you, Pam. I'll add to that. He really hadn't got his appetite back. He hadn't been out of the hospital long, so it was an opportunity for Pam to work the program, and David still we love. All righty. Come on. Somebody's got stories about you. Don't be shy. Come on, David.
Hey y'all, I'm Katie, and I didn't have the pleasure of knowing David for very long, but the impression he made on me when I first moved to Statesville about a year ago, and I was new to the area, I was new to the program, and like I walked through these doors and I had a big book in my hand, and it must have made an impression on him because he pulled me aside after the meeting, and we just talked big book, we just talked program for like 30 minutes, and ever since then, he would stop into my work, the local pizza shop, and he would get salads because he was always claiming to be on a health kick. I don't know how real that is, but it was just always such a joy to see him. We just had this love of literature and this love of what this program can do for us. And I know that, Miss Sheila was talking earlier about just that picturing him at a total peace is just so comforting, because a lot of us know the pain we've gone through and the pain he had been through, and there's comfort for me in knowing that, he's up there doing what he loves, and he's not hurting anymore. And I will forever be grateful that I got to meet David Hawks, and that I will always associate Statesville with that man. So thank you for allowing me to be here and for knowing him.
Thank you, Katie. Thank you for sharing.
Hey everybody, I'm Wendy, and David Hawks was a character, and he and I just kind of clicked when he first came in, because he reminded me of somebody in my family, but he was so funny. One day he thought I was a hippie. And then another day, he thought I was a conspiracy theorist because I'd get up on my soapbox and just start spouting, my beliefs. And he would just laugh at me and put up with it and listen. He was good about that. But he would laugh at me too. So I understood that. But that was okay. And David was, for the short time I did know him, he was a very intelligent, very caring man. He really was. But as Sheila said, he had some demons he was fighting, and he just couldn't get a hold of that tail. But I'm glad he's out of pain right now. And we'll see him again someday, I believe. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you. And I'll add to that, Wendy got to know David while he was living at our house, because he pretty much had three handlers, me, Pam, and
You needed all three.
Well, I lived across the street from Sheila and David as a couple I've been there 10, 11 years, 12 years. And they come to parties at my house, and to see them as a couple was a joy. They were just eyeing at each other, and he's calling her baby. They were just so cute. And they really clicked. One would say something, the other one would go right off the words. There was no lack. They had their own language. And I knew them, and I knew Sheila as a friend. I knew David as it's just a loving couple. And now later, let's go further into it. When he was having difficulty, he wanted so hard to do things right. He really did. And we went together. I said, well, I need a fence. And I'd worked as an RN in Savannah, Georgia for 20 years, and found out that there was a little fund that I got money from the nuns for retiring. I thought, who knew? So I had some money coming in, and I said, well, let's see if David and Sheila, if you minded, if he built a fence in my backyard. And his goal was to build that fence so he could go into rehab in Florida. That's why. And so he and I went to Home Depot. He was genius, absolute genius. It was like listening to a man that does Picasso talking about the fence and the measurements, and off the top of his head he knew precisely what he needed and how to make it work perfect. And I was very honored to have him do my fence, and he did. Sheila and I, he did go on down and worked on things on his own, and very proud of the man. Good man, and that's it.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for sharing. That's great. Okay, Lisa.
Hi, family. I'm Lisa. I first met David, I'm gonna guess probably about 10 years ago. And he was doing well. He had a hellacious program. And at the time, I was struggling with my own demons and having a hard time staying sober. And I heard David speak. I heard his story. And he became one of my heroes. Because it was, wow, all the things that he's been through. And today I could not tell you half of what he said or remember what his past demons were. But just hearing where his life had been before recovery. And here is this man in front of me today, sober, had been sober for years at that point. I don't remember how many, but a number of years. And was working a beautiful program. It's like, if he can do that, then me and my little minor cruds in my life, I can do that. And then the carpentry that he did, I'm probably using the wrong word. I've gotten in trouble many a time with people who are home builders and carpenters and that using the... Oh, I called somebody a carpenter one time and they corrected me and said, no, I'm a home builder. Sorry. So I don't know what the adequate word is, for what David did, but I know the skills that he had. And for the longest time, I really didn't know this lady named Sheila, but I did know of Sheila, David and Sheila, in the business that they were running. And David going from a point of not being a contractor, and Sheila and David, I believe at one point you were the contractor for him, weren't you? Yeah, okay. Like I said, I knew of Sheila. But watching him progress, not just in the program, but in his personal lives, to becoming a pretty well-known figure in Statesville with flipping houses before flipping houses were cool. Just in so many ways, he just inspired me that he was a good person. No, I don't really know a lot of the funny stories of David, but he was somebody who and who inspired me to get my life back together. And then there came a time when I no longer saw David in these rooms, and I was constantly asking, where's David? Has anybody seen David? Or I hear of David in some of the struggles that he was going through. And it would break my heart. And I'll never forget the first day I saw him back here in the meetings. I'm sure it wasn't the first time he was back, but the first time I saw him back. And he was sitting right over about this side. I can picture it to this day. And the head bowed in shame. And the pain in his eyes. And I remember being able to share with David that meeting how glad I was to see him again. And also share with him, don't be ashamed of what has happened. Because you have been an inspiration in my life. And I'm not sure what else I really want to say, but he just was. He just was. And I know Nadine and I talked often about trying to get David to come out and look at her house to see about some renovations and things. And we really wanted what he had to offer. And above all, I wanted him to find that happiness and peace that I had seen him with before. I'm grateful that David was a part of my life. And I'm grateful that last few days or so I've gotten to know this lady named Sheila.
Thank you, Lisa.
Well, this is another shit day. Alright. David stayed with me for a few months there. And we had this conversation when we moved in about how I kind of felt like my house was like a last stop ministry, I always kind of looked at it as I kind of walk with the lepers, you know? I mean, people show up at my house all hours and times. I've been coming to these rooms for a long time. You know, one of the things I think we talked about the most in the last month that he was at my house, he used to send these text messages out in the morning of inspirational stuff to Dale, myself, and I didn't know it, but Sheila too, but there was just another number. This, one particular day, we were discussing something in these text messages, and I gave him an explanation about being chronically malcontent. You know, because when David went out, the first time after he had been sober and him and Sheila were together, and he went out and that whole relationship started to fall apart and all that, and we had this conversation. I was giving him this conversation over this text message about being chronically malcontent. I immediately get a phone call, and David's favorite word, "You dumb Momo," Sheila's on the other end of this text message. And what I had told him was, what I had said in that message basically was, you know, chronically malcontent. You know, for an alcoholic, that's, you know, in our literature it tells us that resentment is the #1 offender. But to be chronically malcontent in an alcoholic is the most horrible place to be. You know, and in my own personal experience, I never felt like I had enough. I never felt like my girlfriend was pretty enough, my car wasn't shiny enough, my house wasn't clean enough or nice enough, I wasn't a good enough person. I just never was able to meet up to my own standards. And having these conversations with David, he pointed out to me, he said, you know, we project that onto other people too. And he was the one that pointed that out to me. When we project that out, I project that out onto other people. So if I can't be content with my own decisions in a life that I'm living, how can I be content with yours? How can I make a friend? And that's what we mostly talked about, was how to be a friend, how to be a worker among workers, a friend among friends, a husband to a wife. We had all these conversations. You know, I like to think that David had gotten some clarity when he was living at my house. I know that he helped me tremendously. And we hear that a lot in the rooms, you know, people come in here and they're struggling and they're hurting. And, you know, I had my own sponsor, he said, yeah, I don't know how you're doing, but you're really helping me, you know. And, you know, when you look at somebody in that state of mind and in that chronically malcontent, self-induced misery that we put ourselves through, you know, when I get this gratitude, you know, they say this is a selfish program. You know, what the selfish part for me today is, when someone else is in this room, I have a responsibility. The responsibility is for the hand of AA to always reach out to someone. But when I can sit there and tell myself, thank God it's not me today, and be okay with that. Thank God it's not me, but I can't back down. My hand has to be still out there. And this is a sad day, but if David was here, he would probably be pissed because we didn't have a cover charge at the door. But David is in a much better place, and you know, we've never done anything like this before here at Bell Street, and I'm really surprised at the turnout, you know. And they say that this is a family disease. And if you look at all the people in the room, look at all the people that were affected by David and the life that he led, both good and bad. You know, I have horror stories I can tell you about David, but you know, I'd rather look at the things that he spoke about and told me that were an asset in my life, that helped me. You know, we all have our ups and downs in life. Most of David's were under the sheets, but for that, in that case, you know, David.
I'm about to cut you off in a minute.
Please do.
David made a definite impact in my life, and I'm gonna miss him.
Well, thank you, Randall.
This one hurt. Started out with one of the first times I ever met him. There's a picture actually right there. And he's not really smiling, kind of grinning. the reason for that is he had just came down to North Carolina, just met me, and I had just bought Scenic Sports. And he swore to God he could beat me in Scenic Sports. Ain't no way a kid was gonna beat him in Scenic Sports. I said, all right, let's go. So we started the game, and we were neck and neck the whole way. Neither one of us missing a single answer. We got down to overtime, sudden death. And it popped up on the screen. It said, what is this mascot, or what is the mascot of Niagara University? And I said, Purple Eagles. My mom graduated from Niagara University. He said, is this on the radio? Go ahead. He said, you gotta be effing kidding me. Who the F knows
He pouted the entire night. I was
He
like, are
was
you
so
12?
mad that I beat him because it was the Purple Eagles. And it just so happened that mom had went there. But I got so many memories of him. The house that we lived in for so long, I'd work with him in the summer. He used to tell me that I needed to pull the strings on my shirt, put some weight on.
He said, oh, that's your arm.
It's always fun. It's always a good time. He looked up to me. I truly believe that. I always tried to be there for him. Never did he ever leave and not say, I love you, brother. And he always said, I'm thankful for you. We were doing a remodel for Caden's mother, for her mom. And the first day that we were doing it, they were talking about the bathroom and everything, and every conversation got back to mom. She looked at him, she said, I'm gonna go out on a limb, but you are madly in love with her. Is it that obvious? This is 10, 12 years later. But he had a heart of gold. Addiction's tough. He fought it well, I always tried to help him. He was the person I called at 1 o'clock in the morning when I got kicked out on Christmas Eve from Caden's mom's house. He was there for me, helped me move my stuff. He called me the other night, told him I'd be there. And I was. And I sensed an eerie sense of relief. He turned around, wouldn't look at me, tried to fist bump me, and I said, damn it, David, no, I'm not giving up on you. You wouldn't give up on me, and you know damn well. And he wouldn't look at me. And I said, get back in the car. Turned around with the most sincerest smile, and just said, I love you, brother, but this time he said goodbye. I want to believe that it was a higher power. It was his time, it was working through him, it wasn't his decision. I believe that he was relieving a lot of people of pain, himself of pain, and now he can look down over us eternally. Every memory I ever had of him, man, I love him, and he's always there for me, and had the heart of gold, and I don't know many people that had a heart bigger than him. He was a great man. He made a huge impact on my life.
Thank you, Travis.
Hang in there, man. Yeah, I got one shot of this. Hey, my name's Tom. I've been in this Bill Street group for a good while, about 6 years, and I got to know David in and out these doors here, and I do know that he was one of the most intellectual of the book. He read the big book, front and back, almost had it memorized, which would be neat that he'd go to that closet and grab a big book and he'd know what page to turn to. I'd have to flip through it and read and study, and he was already at the page, so a lot of people do that, David. You know, the word David, the name David, you know, is in the Bible, in the book of Samuel, you know, where David went up against Goliath. And how did that happen? Because David was the son of Jesse. They had 8 children. So the rest of the children were out in the field fighting, that left David as a sheep herder, kind of like Jesus was. And in sheep herding, you gotta keep the sheep safe and all, and there were wolves and stuff like that would eat the sheep up, but David had a plan to make slingshots and stuff, and he take these rocks and all, and put them in a bag and all, and he'd create a slingshot and protect the sheep. So when it came time for him to meet Goliath, Goliath was in the Bible almost 9 feet tall. He wore almost 200 pounds of armor. He had a guy in front of him to protect him. So when David got there to meet up with Goliath, and this was a godsend that David was even there, David had a plan to do a slingshot because he was good at it. How many people would plan that? But you know, if David Hawks was here and had his slingshot, and he had his plan with him, he would talk me and anybody else in the room to go up against Goliath. The chances are he'd succeed. I think with him. I believed in him, and a lot of people in the room believed in him. I think that he was part of God's message to be in this room to meet everybody, that he affected everybody, one way or the other. And that was a good thing. The bad thing is, you know, he still had his demons, and we all have those, but he addressed those the way he could. And a lot of us disagree with the way that happened, but it's not our choice. It's God's choice. It's God's will that these things happen. It's God's will that we're sitting in these chairs today and that we're seeing these flowers and seeing this tribute. I don't ever remember a tribute ever being done in this building, but I've been in here, 6 years, and I don't remember one. But this is a good thing. It's a good thing that we're all together and that we can celebrate a life that is truly complicated to understand, but it is understandable. We've heard testimony already of people of the positive good things that have happened as a result of meeting David. And I'll end with this, that this room will never forget David. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
David loved lamb chops too.
Yeah.
My name is Dwayne. I don't know a lot of you guys. Sheila Ashley, something like that. But David used to work with me at TQM Roofing about 3 years ago. He was actually remodeling a house for me, you know, up until, and one thing I know about David is he was a craftsman. Anything he did in that house was, and everybody that's been in there since just stands there and just looks around like, wow. David was good, wasn't he? What he's doing. But when he worked with me at TQM Roofing, I was a service manager, and they hired him as kind of just a guy to do anything and everything. But he ended up with me for about a couple of days, and I'd go in at 6 o'clock. And when I get there, he would already be there in my office, sitting there with me a plate of breakfast and himself a plate of breakfast. And I'm thinking, okay, yeah, you're working for me from now on. So I talked to Richard, who owned the company. I said, well, why don't you Dave back here again? Because at the time we were really far behind on writing reports. Well, what we did was we'd go out. I had 3 foremen. They'd go out. They would, repair roofs. It's commercial, flat commercial roof. They'd go out, they'd make repairs, they'd take the pictures, they'd write the reports. Well, what we'd have to do is take their pictures, all their raw data, and put it into a nice little neat report for the customer, and then send it to them with an invoice. So, found out David could put them reports together, and he was really good. He really good at it. Really good at it. But the thing and it may have been my fault, I didn't explain to him how to save them as an individual file each time. So before he left, and it wasn't long, he had gotten a job opportunity to become a superintendent for a pretty good sized GC company. So he left us and went and done that. But what he was doing each time, he would build them beautiful reports. He'd save it, but he was just saving it each time. He wasn't particularly saving it as anything. So for about the 100 reports that he did, every time we'd go back to try to find one after he had gone to send to a customer, it wasn't there because he was just saving it and then he'd write over the next one. So my little girl that they hired to come do that, she'd be sitting there and you'd hear her just, David! Because the report was the last one he did. It was always that one, every one that she would pull up, it was that last report that he did. Bless his heart, I mean, it was my fault because I didn't explain to him any better, but, I'm glad I got to know David. When he was, I had no idea what he was dealing with. When he was working for me with Mom Pass, I mean, I never saw that in him. I mean, he was always happy, always jolly, always had an idea of, hey, right here, let's do this, and he's always had something going on. I had no idea what he was dealing with, but, thank God I got to know him. He's a great guy.
Thank you, Dwayne. Thank you, Dwayne. Just be mindful of time, but, does anyone have something that you feel a burning desire, anybody wants to say something?
I do.
Okay.
I'm Rose.
Hey, Rose.
And one of the things that I found that was really unique about David, I love to make stuff. That's one of my healing things, and especially banana pudding.
Rose with the banana pudding.
I would fix up bowls of banana pudding and different sweets, and bless his heart, I'd always offer him stuff, and he finally looked at me one day, and he was like, Rose, you do realize I'm taking this to Sheila? I was like, yeah. He was like, okay. I wanted to make sure he had some, she had some, and he was like, you feed me all this stuff, Rose. He's like, I'm a diabetic. I didn't know.
I told her one time, Rose, you brought the banana pudding. I said, I don't know who made this, but whether they're male or female, I will marry them. I know.
He showed me the text.
Did he tell you that?
He showed me the text. He's like, you've been proposed to. Okay.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, Rose.
Yes, thank you.
I'd like to share a little bit. Standing out so much, I didn't pay a lot of attention to him to begin with. But the day came when I was going through what I call a dry time. When you just can't seem to get things to go, the plan don't work, you know, you're just kind of stuck. Sort of dead zone, so to speak. Couldn't get past it, went on for a good while. And came in here, one day he was here. And lo and behold, the tidbit of the day that I referred to came from the lips of David Owens. Light bulb went off, and I immediately went past the dry time. And I used that continuously for a long time. I'm sure I still do, just don't remember what that particular one was. But from that point on, I listened intently to anything David had to say. And many times, he was the conduit between God of my understanding and myself. And I spoke to his lips. And many times, tidbit of the day that I needed to set back in that situation came through this. I miss him. With you too. When the man's done. His journey.
Thank you, Nadine. Thank you, Nadine. Well, of course, I want to thank everybody for being here. Does anybody else have anything? If not, We are gonna close with the St. Francis prayer, and if you wanna get the books out, they're on page 99.
Tell me to say something.
Yeah, I'm not gonna close it.
I'm sorry, we are gonna close that. Right here, everybody, this is one of David's big books. If anybody would like to sign it, whatever your favorite passage is, that is something that will be in our time capsule. I greatly appreciate it, and I know he would be so honored.
Yes, food.
Yeah.
Yes, and there's food in here
Yeah.
also. Yes, Travis.
Travis.
There's one thing that he told me since 2010. He said everything happens for a reason. You damn sure may not know what it is at the moment, but it's for a reason, it's for something. And I've lived with that my whole life, and there's a reason.
Thank you, Travis, very much so. Of course, my life has been enriched tremendously by David Hawks, and in ways that I can't really explain in words. He and I had a connection that, I called it a bromance, but he didn't like that word. He did not like that word.
No,
So I used it often. And we had an immediate chemistry, especially being intellectual, arrogant individuals who knew the book, and we could talk book, and we had a lot of other things in common as I got to know David. And racing was a big deal to him. And of course, I had my sister named Sheila, and Pam's first cousin Sheila, and now Sheila Federer. So Sheila was a very important name in my life. And of course, I know that some of the demons David has dealt with. We had the same disease in that concept in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous explains it to us. And you know, the other thing, it's one thing being an alcoholic, it's a whole other thing working with alcoholics and learning how to work with somebody and love them and not compete with them. Because he loved to compete, but I wouldn't compete with him. But we did have a unique relationship in that other people said, well, why do you keep messing with David? I said, I don't know. But I cannot keep from it. And, you know, it was one of them things that I said I can't really put it into words. And see, I don't see it as a failure at all. Look at the celebration. David has been so impactful. Like I said, we've really never done this here. And to see the kind of love that David had shared with all of us, it was incredible. And he was not easy to work with, but neither was I. And I did text Sheila when I said, well, I'm not going to be able to sponsor David anymore. But I had zero regrets in sponsoring David, but if I did not quit sponsoring him, we couldn't stay friends. And then the people in AA would understand that. I said, so let's shift this thing from a sponsor-sponsee deal to friends. And there's a fine line between empowerment and enabling, and sometimes you don't know the difference until afterwards. And that's why I say it really was a tremendous honor for me and a privilege to work with David because of the abilities that's been expressed in this room, his personality, and there's a little thing I'll share. We were at the store, and he would come out of the store, and we were really getting close. And this may be one of the reasons why we continue to be friends even to this day. And you know, it says sometimes this friendship is beyond words, but I'm standing in the store and we just said a little prayer. And I had a tremendous experience, and I had shifted places with David, and I was the guy needing the help, and David was helping me. Whether that was in a past life or a future life, but I had a momentary weird experience. And in that experience, there was what I call a spiritual transformation, and something transmitted between us that is for eternity. Because David's not here in his body, but he's here in spirit. And in spirit and in truth. I want to say before God and this crowd that I love David, and thank y'all for being here. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of this. It is an honor and a privilege. And we will close with the St. Francis prayer in this book here, and Lisa's got the book, page 99. And we'll take our time. Page 99.
Not like attention. Higher power.
We'll take our time, we'd like for everyone to get on the page. You know, it takes a lot for any of us to get on the same page. It is, page 99. It's the third paragraph down on page 99. But we'll just take a moment of silence too before we start reading, because this is a closing prayer. This is a prayer that AA borrowed from St. Francis of Assisi, if you know his story. Is everybody ready? Is everybody ready? Okay. Let's begin. Lord, make me a channel of thy peace, that where there is hatred I may bring love, that where there is wrong I may bring the spirit of forgiveness, that where there is discord I may bring harmony, that where there is error I may bring truth, that where there is doubt I may bring faith, that where there is despair I may bring hope, that where there is shadows I may bring light, that where there is sadness I may bring joy. Lord, grant that I may seek rather to comfort than to be comforted, to understand than to be understood, to love than to be loved. For it is by self-forgetting that one finds. It is by forgiving that one is forgiven. It is by dying that one awakens to eternal life. Amen. 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 Thank you, God. I knew he's here. God just turned out great. Now, nobody steal this book. This here's an old AA book. It's one of mine that I acquired. It's a 1946 published. Yeah, I brought that in honor of Dave. This Bible is 1939.